Minister, will you provide an update on the proposed modular units for Ukrainian families fleeing the war in their country, including the timeframe for the completion and allocation of these units in County Cavan? And if you will provide details of the additional resources and supports that are being put in place in Cavan in advance of and conjunction with the allocation of these units.
Thank you, Deputy. Since the outbreak of the war in Ukraine in February of last year, my department continues to work as part of the whole of government response with a focus on meeting the immediate accommodation needs of those fleeing the conflict. To date, the state has provided accommodation to more than 55,000 beneficiaries of the Temporary Protection Directive. In response to the crisis, the government has sought to provide a range of accommodation solutions in every county in Ireland, including Cavan. As part of this considerable national effort, the government has approved the construction of 700 rapid-build homes on state-owned land, which will aim to provide accommodation to 2,800 individuals in family units. The OPW is supporting the development of the rapid-build accommodation in conjunction with my department. OPW and my department are currently rolling out the first phase of the programme of rapid build homes on sites identified in Cork, Cavan, Tipperary, Sligo and Mayo. The installation of some of these homes has already begun, and this work will continue over the coming months. A comprehensive communications approach has been applied for each of the sites that have been identified for the first phase of sites. The site in Cavan on OPW land off the Farnham Road was identified as having capacity for 28 units. It is planned all works on the Cavan site will be completed at the beginning of April, and people will start to move into the homes mid to late April. My department is working with other departments and agencies on the additional needs that will arise. We work closely with the Department of Health in relation to the healthcare needs of displaced people from Ukraine. The HSE has been notified of the proposed number of residents for each site and the associated potential healthcare needs. The Department of Education has put in place regional educational and language teams, RAILT, to help Ukrainian families find schools. If the local school does not have enough places, alternative arrangements will be made to bring children to schools close by. And in addition, funding from the €50 million Community Recognition Fund within Minister Humphreys and Minister O'Brien's department will be allocated to projects in local areas under the direction of Cavan County Council.
Minister. Yeah, I mean, I think a briefing that we received from yourself and your department would have indicated, I think, that they were supposed to be in place by the end of last year. And I know initially it was 60 and then it was reduced to 28, but that's still 28 additional families. And I'm just concerned when the hotels, many hotels that are housing refugees at the moment may not continue that past the end of March, so there's going to be more demand for accommodation. And, you know, there's such a demand on the housing market. I mean, it's just like what plans have been put in place to address that issue. But it's also, I know in Cavan, say, there's a considerable demand on preschool places. So if children, you know, at preschool age come in, there's not going to be many places available for them. There's also demand on secondary school places. I know one school had over 100 enrolments above what their capacity for next year. And that's just one school, and that's happening in other schools. Now, I mean, that may alleviate as students pick between different schools or whatever, but if we have 28 additional families, they need to have places to go to school in. I would hear from the resource centres on a regular basis, and they're under pressure as well to provide services to the community at large and to the refugees who have come to live there from Syria and so forth. Lovely people who have integrated well, but need a lot more support to do that.
Exactly. In terms of the education and the provision of school places at either primary or secondary level, very grateful to Minister Foley for acting rapidly to put in place these rails at ETB level. So they're there to, I suppose, identify where there is spare capacity and where schools are under pressure, and look to match that to the needs of initially Ukrainian children, but now subsequently they also work to secure accommodation for international protection children as well. So that's a good system. I think it's operating well, and they will be closely linked into the new arrivals in Cavan and in other areas to make sure we can secure school places for them. In terms then of the wider pressures, and you're right, and there is a risk that there will be greater pressures on the Ukrainian accommodation front going into the spring. I suppose we have the modular accommodation approach, we have the new vacant home scheme, and we have the refurbished home scheme that the Department of Housing are undertaking. But we will have to examine, and a lot depends in terms of how many hotels make a decision themselves to revert to their former tourism use.
Minister, I suppose, would you consider that there's good cross-departmental cooperation on this issue? Because we need the Department of Education to assist you, we need the Department of Health to ensure there's enough GP places. Because we're looking at these horrific protests that are happening outside of centres, which shouldn't be happening there. I mean, people want to protest. It's outside the doors or the gates of Leinster House that they should be protesting, and not outside the doors where vulnerable people are living. And there are people there with genuine concerns, and I just think we need to see a lot more cooperation across all departments to ensure that the services are put in place. I mean, in a past life I was a teacher. I taught students from all different parts of the world. Some of them came to Cavan as refugees, and I thought they brought a rich diversity and they integrated well, and we were able to accommodate them. So it's just that there's a huge increase in numbers. There has to be a huge increase in resources as well to ensure that there is the capacity to integrate them into our communities, because that's the only way forward. And school and education is a great way of doing that.
Absolutely. And Deputy, I think I've always been upfront in terms of the challenge that this crisis, the dual crisis of Ukraine and the wider migration challenge, it is a challenge for the state. It's a challenge for all states right now in terms of it puts extra pressure on resources. And I know within my own department, and you spoke of family resource centres, TUSLA has additional allocation to support the response to Ukraine, and that can be filtered down to TUSLA, I suppose, frontline services, including family resource centres. I believe there is good intergovernmental cooperation. We have the Cabinet Committee on Ukraine that meets regularly, and we look at these various issues. There's the Department of Education has done very good mapping in terms of identifying areas where there is capacity in schools and areas where there isn't capacity. Of course, when we're looking for accommodation, it's not always possible to mirror that because if there's no hotel accommodation in an area where there's capacity, we're not able to immediately respond to that. But we work as closely as we can with the Department of Education in terms of aligning where we are locating Ukrainians with available capacity.